Day one of the NFL Combine workouts are officially in the books. 5 straight hours of defensive linemen and linebackers running 40-yard dashes and being put through various drills. With day one now officially in the books, I wanted to recap some of the standout performers of the day. Most of my work today is just charting and evaluating guys' movement skills compared to their peers. But I wanted to share what I saw with you guys. Let's get right into it. First, we'll just go up and down the list a little bit, and then I'll get into my standout performers a bit more in detail. First off, the 2 guys who weighed in but did not do any testing were Illinois' standout defensive tackle Jer'Zhan Newton and Jonah Elliss, the edge rusher from Utah. We finally learned how big T'Vondre Sweat was, checking in at 6'4.5" and 366 pounds. A massive human being. He ran a 4.27 40. Next up was Darius Robinson, who ran a 4.95 40, a bit slower than I expected, but he is 6'5" and 285 pounds. He looked a bit more like a 3-tech than a defensive end today, but I do think he's talented enough to play either spot. Same with Brandon Dorlus, who checked in at 6'3", 283 and ran a 4.85 40. Both guys are very big, athletic, versatile, and powerful. The guy who really caught my eye was Texas Tech defensive end Myles Cole. He ran a 4.69 40 but has freakish 36 7/8 inch arm length, a crazy wingspan. The interior linemen today really showed off their movement skills, as evidenced by Chris Jenkins, Byron Murphy, Mekhi Wingo, and other big men all running sub-5 40-yard dashes. But the guy who stole the show and was the most athletic D-tackle at the event was Braden Fisk. He popped with a 9.92 relative athletic score and tested off the charts for his size. He's a guy I really liked when I was watching Jared Verse's tape at Florida State. Fisk should be moving up draft boards. He's a high motor player and an athletic freak. So were my other 2 standouts though, Chop Robinson and Jared Verse. Chop was already Bruce Feldman's #1 athletic freak coming into the event, and he showed off today. He was really only held back by his size and finished with a 9.53 relative athletic score. He ran a blazing 4.49 40 with a 1.54 10-yard split. Chop is a guy that Ryan Poles really should like. The only worry would be his sub-33 inch arm length. His arms checked in at 32.5 inches. But my #1 guy on the day was easily Jared Verse. He looked the part, another Florida State guy who dominated on tape. He came out and compared physically and athletically to Will Anderson, the top defensive end from last year. That's a lofty comparison, but I didn't come up with it. It's the one that the NFL Network put up on the screen and compared Verse's athleticism, size, and weight directly to Will Anderson from last year. His athleticism was off the charts too, another athletic freak scoring a 9.39 on the RAS score. He ran a 4.6 40 and checked in at over 6'3" and 254 pounds. Verse looked like one of the best defensive players in the draft and a lock to go in the top 15. Overall, there's a lot to like from the first day. I could mention a lot of other guys as well: Mekhi Wingo, Gabe Hall, Muhammad Kamara, Dwayne Carter, Rook Orororo, really hard to say his name. Byron Murphy balled out. Adisa Isaac really had the arm length, athleticism, and size that Poles likes. And you can't really talk about today without bringing up Dallas Turner at some point, who passed up Chop Robinson and ran a 4.46 40 and checked in with 34+ inch arm length. Dallas Turner is definitely on Ryan Poles' radar. In fact, he might be more on his radar than Laiatu Latu, who didn't run as fast of a 40 or have as long of his arms. I love Latu's game, but we know Ryan Poles loves athleticism, and we know that Eberflus, for his system with his defensive ends, they have to be able to set the edge, and he prefers guys with longer arms. If we want to mention a guy who disappointed me today, I think it was Braylon Trice out of Washington. He cut weight for this event. He checked in at 6'3.5" and 245 pounds, but that's the problem. He weighed less than his playing weight, but he didn't run that fast of a 40, coming in at 4.72. And he also had under 33-inch arms. Overall, though, there was a lot to like from this defensive line group. A lot of athleticism, a lot of size. These guys can really move, and there's a lot of players on this list I like. With day one of the Combine in the books, what other news and tidbits came out today? There are multiple rumors flying around when it comes to the Chicago Bears at the Combine. Ian Rappaport came on to NFL Total Access and said word around the Combine is that it would take a historical haul of draft picks for the Chicago Bears to move off of that number 1 pick. He added that there were more than a handful of teams looking to move up in the draft, all looking for quarterbacks, and it is possible that a team could meet Ryan Poles' expectations. If Poles ends up trading that pick, he will have executed one of the greatest smokescreens in NFL history. And if you pay attention to the narratives, just a couple of days ago, the reports were almost 100% certain that the Bears were going to draft Caleb Williams. Now the media guys seem to be walking that back a little bit and are saying the Bears are open to trading the top pick, but just adding that it would take a historical haul of draft picks. And Ian Rappaport himself saying that means multiple first-round picks and a lot more. He said Poles has to get enough to feel comfortable building a roster even if Justin Fields doesn't work out. So that means if he's trading pick number 1, he needs a ton of picks. This sounds to me like Ryan Poles wants to pull off one of the biggest trades in NFL history, or else he's going to stay put and take Caleb Williams. Is it possible that Ryan Poles would be comfortable drafting Caleb or sticking with Justin, and he's just trying to see which route he can go to squeeze the most possible draft picks out of another team? I believe it is definitely still a possibility. Someone asked me in the comments earlier. Last year at this time, I was about 100% sure that we were keeping Justin Fields and trading the number 1 pick. A couple weeks ago, I was about 80% sure. As I sit here today, I want to say that's came down a little bit, just based off of Ryan Poles' comments and how he didn't shy away from the Patrick Mahomes comparisons. I definitely think there's a good chance he's trying to up the trade value, but I would say right now, I'm about 70% sure we keep Justin Fields, 30% sure we draft Caleb Williams. Things are about to get interesting, guys. We're less than 2 weeks away from free agency, and tomorrow is day 2 of full Combine coverage. Saturday is the big day. That's when quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers work out. Stay tuned. Be sure to turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. Remember to hit that like button for me. And until next time, bear down.